You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
All writers are prone to becoming so attached to our characters and stories that we struggle to see why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing to full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, shaping stories into masterpieces that can stand the test of time. Editing services are provided for all genres and all age categories. Services range from critiques of the short story through to the line edits of the full-length novel and copy editing for those preparing for publication. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites, as well as help with those book blurbs and promotional material. We won't abandon you to the masses. We want to celebrate with you in your successes. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services and prices, visit us at blackwolfeditorial.com.
Individuals and businesses with tax problems, listen carefully. Do you feel like you're losing control over your finances? If you owe over $10,000 in back taxes or have unfiled tax returns, we can help you take back control. The IRS is the largest and most aggressive collection agency in the world, and they can seize your bank account, garnish your paycheck, close your business, and file criminal charges. Take control of your tax problems now by calling the experts at Tax Mediation Services and take advantage of the Fresh Start program and new laws that may allow us to negotiate a settlement for the lowest amount possible. Our team of tax attorneys and enrolled agents can stop collections and get you protected so you can take control of your financial future. Tax Mediation Services is accredited by the Better Business Bureau. Call now for a free case review and a price protection guaranteed quote.
Call Tax Mediation Services now at 800-610-9050. That's 800-610-9050. 800-610-9050.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it, there to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show. Welcome, everybody, and welcome, fellow patriots. Welcome once again to the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader, coming to you live from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network at WNJC 1360 in Philadelphia and around the world on the internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, AM, FM 24/7. Indeed, we are everywhere. We are everywhere. And joining me today as my co-host is the president and CEO of Frontiers of Freedom, George Landreth. George, welcome to the Conservative Commandos.
As always, it's good to be here.
Great to have you with us.
A day without women, but you better not have a day without the Conservative Commando.
You bet. You bet. I love that. You know, George, yesterday we put out this appeal, and we're going to put out this appeal again today, that if anybody was affected by a day without women in any way, if they were affected, inconvenienced, I mean, maybe you went to your favorite coffee shop and you couldn't get waited on, or you went to the post office and you couldn't buy stamps because the people who usually waited on you are ladies. Maybe you went by a school crossing that wasn't manned because the crossing guard is a lady and she was observing a day without women. Well, I want you to call us. We're going to open our phones. John, is our phones, are they open, John?
They are open.
They are open. And so
I want to be clear here. We're not asking people to report on how their life would really be if they, in fact, really didn't have the important women in their life.
Right.
We're asking about yesterday's day, the event.
The event yesterday.
Because, okay.
If their day was affected in any way because yesterday was a day without women, please call us. I'm begging you, please, please, please call us at 856-227-1360, 856-227-1360. You know, George, we had the phones open for about, over a half an hour yesterday, and we only got one call. We did get one call. Rich called us, and what Rich says was, well, my day wasn't changed. And I said, Rich, that's not why we got the phones open. We want to hear from you. If your life was altered or changed or infected in any way, because yesterday was a day without women. And again, that number is 856-227-1360. John, the lines, is it open?
Line is open. The 1360 line is open.
1360. John, if we get any activity on that line, please let me know right away. All right, George, what's on your radar screen?
Well, of course, we have lots of stuff in the news about the Obamacare replacement bill. And I think it's an interesting conversation because a lot rides on it. The truth of the matter is we desperately have to get out from under the burden of Obamacare as a country, as an economy, as people who would like to have jobs, etc. So the question, I think, is, when you look at this bill, I think we have to have kind of an honest appraisal of it. And I would argue that there's certainly much to recommend the bill. There's many respects in which the bill's a little disappointing. And yet what I kind of hear is everybody acting a little bit like the Earth's coming to an end because we're not going to get what we were hoping for. And I guess that my first reaction would be is I think people should be a little more, a little more hopeful than that. Now, I mean, my sense of it is yesterday I had the opportunity to talk with one of President Trump's key advisors. You see her on the news all the time, and I felt a lot better after having talked to her about what the game plan is and what the goals are here and how they intend to go about it. And I also had a better sense that they've got a hold of things. So I was, I think it's easy to kind of get carried away like it's not everything you want. I would agree with that. If you asked me if George could wave a wand and make something happen, I would take us, first thing I'd do is I'd repeal the Affordable Care Act or Obamacare lock, stock, and barrel. everything. And then I would, that'd be job one. Then job two would be to put in some needed reforms that would actually put patients more in charge and get government out of it. Because I would argue one of the big problems we had pre-Obamacare was that the government had screwed things up and had messed things up.
One thing, George, is how about let people be responsible for their own health care? Let them make their own decisions, even if they get it or not. But they need to know that if they decide they don't want health care, well, they're not going to be bailed out by the government. They're not going to, or let me rephrase that. They're not going to be bailed out by the responsible taxpayer.
I would agree. I think that's key. So, as I see it, at least, the challenge here is having a discussion where it's not all kind of like. I guess I'm saying let's have a reasonable debate about this, but I hear people kind of say like, oh, this is basically not any different than Obamacare. And I'm like, well, that's not true. It's radically different than Obamacare. But is it everything we want? No, it's not. I mean, in other words, if someone tells me this is everything you want, I would say to them, no, that's not true. It's not everything I want. And if someone were to tell me this is horrible, this isn't even remotely close to what we're looking for, I would say that's not true either. It's somewhere in between, as everything in politics is, and we've got to exert our influence to get it to be what we want. Now, I will say this. I think one of the challenges we have in this debate, and as conservatives, we always have to understand, this is where we start off a little behind the eight ball, which is the other side is always promising everybody free stuff. Hey, this is free. And then we walk up and say, oh, no. Not free. You need to pay for it. You need, like even you just said, you need to be responsible.
Yes.
Now, I agree with you. That's the 100% right answer. That's the way it should be. But it's a hard argument to make to some people because their view is, whoa, he's offering me something free, and you're saying I need to be in charge. I'll just give you a quick example. Let's say it's pizza. Mm-hmm. Some guy walks in and says, pizza, it's free. And then the other person, you and I walk in the room and say, whoa. You should really buy your own pizza. For a variety of reasons, you want to buy your own pizza. It's the moral thing to do because responsible people take care of their own needs, but it's also going to make sure you get the pizza you want instead of crappy pizza or cold pizza or week-old pizza or whatever. And they say, oh, no, but we're going to give you free pizza, and then they make all the Obamacare-type promises. If you like your pizza, you can keep it, all that other garbage. And then we find out the pizza is, of course, terrible. But the point is, we always end up walking into the room saying, oh, well, no, actually, free is not better. And I'm not saying we're wrong. We are absolutely right. But it does, I hope people can appreciate that it's a little harder argument to make because then we have to get into explaining why it is that free pizza might not be the deal you think it is. Because one, nothing's free.
Nothing's free.
Two, it might not be very good pizza. It might be slapped together. It might be a week old. It might be garbage. It might be something that you wouldn't have eaten when you were starving in college. But the point is, we have to understand that the burden is going to be on us to win this debate, and it's not always an easy debate to win. So we have to get really good at our conversation. We have to become very persuasive in our conversation. And my sense is you don't do that when you stand around kind of just going, oh my gosh, this is terrible, or oh my gosh, this is perfect. The truth is facts and good arguments, and I would argue appealing to the better angels of people's nature are the way we win arguments, not by kind of, these kind of extreme, it's perfect or it's terrible kind of things. We've really got to get people and bring them along and explain, why it's better to have personal responsibility in the long run, why it's actually cheaper. The old joke, you think healthcare is expensive now, wait till it's free. And, we have to be able to explain this to people, and we have to win this debate. And I would argue that we've gotten in the habit of thinking that it's not a big deal, that we can win this debate. Among ourselves, we've won the debate already.
Hey, George, we are up against the break. Could you hold that thought for...
We've got to take a break.
You're listening to the Conservative Commandos with George Landreth and Rick Trader. And remember, if your day was affected yesterday because it was a day without women, please call our radio show and tell us how your day was affected, what you noticed, where things slowed down. Did the infrastructure crash? Please call our show at 856-227-1360 if your day was affected in any way by a day without women. John, are those phones ringing off the hook, John?
Not one phone call yet, Rick.
Not one phone call. Don't go away. George, I, and John will be right back.
The Conservative Commandos Radio Show is the commander of the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We've established a front line of conservative leaders and ironclad patriots to revive the promise of America.
There must be some kind of way out of here.
We patriots have succeeded in securing the next 4 years of American prosperity, sovereignty, and liberty under President Donald Trump. But the fight is never over, and we must be forever vigilant.
Businessman there, drink my wine.
Do you have a passion for American values? Do you believe in preserving the American dream? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, Monday through Saturday from 12 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 AM, or around the world on the internet at ccrshow.com and ccrsnetwork.com. Check out our websites for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Hi, I'm Kevin Wade. Conservative Commandos is happy to welcome Liberty HealthShare as a sponsor. Liberty HealthShare is a community of health-conscious Americans who practice long-standing Christian principles in sharing health care costs. Liberty HealthShare exists for everyone who purchases health care for themselves or their family, or who wants to control their own health care. I run a small business, and we were caught in the confusion of Washington's ever-changing health insurance requirements. We found a common-sense solution in Liberty HealthShare. Liberty HealthShare is not insurance. It simply unites like-minded Americans to share medical costs together. Join a community of health-conscious Americans who practice long-standing Christian principles in sharing health care costs. That's Liberty HealthShare. To find out how you can easily make the change, call Liberty HealthShare today at 855-585-4237. That's 855-585-4237, or visit their website at libertyhealthshare.org.
This is Pastor Christina Lamb-Menier, chaplain for the Indiana Republican Assembly.
And I'm her husband, J.D. Menier. We won the election, but we must now install President Trump's nominees. We urge you to call the Capitol Switchboard at 202-225-3121 and ask your senators to do their job. They need to confirm Judge Neil Gorsuch and remaining cabinet members.
We, the people, never want to see another Berkeley. The First Amendment doesn't give you the right to commit acts of violence. It pains us to watch anarchy unfold on college campuses, bus stops, and coffee shops. Thomas Jefferson said, "All tyranny needs to gain a foothold is for people of good conscience to remain silent." Let us join in unity to pray for America. Once again, the number to call is 202-225-3121.
You can call the Conservative Commandos Radio Show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with George Landreth and yours truly, Rick Trader. And for rebroadcasts of our shows, check out our website, ccrshow.com or ccrsnetwork.com. And please call us. Yesterday was a day without a woman. That's what they called it, a day without a woman. And please call us if your day was affected in any way, if you were denied service anywhere, or the infrastructure in your town broke down, or maybe the buses didn't run on time. If your life in any way was affected, let us know. Call us at 856-227-1360.
Rick, we actually do have a caller that called in.
What? We have a caller?
We have a call.
And who is the caller?
We have Ann on the line.
Ann on the line. Ann, welcome to Conservative Commandos. Tell us, Ann, how your day was changed or affected because yesterday was a day without a woman.
it was not affected in any way at all.
Well,
but I do hear there were some people who were affected.
All right. Well, Ann, your day wasn't affected. Well, that's not what we're looking for callers. I mean, what did you do yesterday, Ann, that may have been different from your usual day? Because yesterday was a day without a woman.
Well, I'll tell you what I did yesterday. I actually did wind up taking off work to take care of my grandson who was out of school. Then I took my other son to school. Then I cleaned my other son's house. Then I went and picked up my son again. And then I went home and took care of my grandson some more and my husband. So I guess I missed it, didn't I?
Well, it's a good thing you didn't take off a day from your family. You mentioned your grandson was out of school. Was that because the school was closed because it was a day without a woman?
No, actually, he was on spring break.
Oh, okay.
He had bronchitis, and so he was sick. So I was doing what I needed to do, as a grandmother.
Yes.
Mother. Yeah, so...
And are you active on Facebook or social media in any way?
Oh, yes, I am. I am totally active. I actually run a group of about 100,000 people that are that love our president.
Wow, 100,000. Well, and you mentioned that you have heard some things that were affected because yesterday was the day without a woman. How were people affected? What stories did you hear?
Well, I heard that, a lot of women were affected, actually, because, they weren't let the schools closed, so their kids couldn't go to school, so they couldn't go to work. I would imagine, a lot of people can't afford to take a day off of work and or pay for extra child care. And also there were children who depend on the meals that they get from the schools. So if we're closed, there might have even been hungry children. I don't know. So
we talked about yesterday on the show, we talked about a couple of school districts, one being in Alexandria, Virginia, the other in Prince George's County, Virginia. They were closed. And I had that same thought, and what about all those parents who depend upon school as a place to put their kids as they go out to make money to pay their taxes? Wonder how, and were you ever in a traffic jam that was caused by a protest?
I can't say that I have.
Well, you see these protests across the country where these people block traffic. Okay, we saw that with Black Lives Matter. We saw that when President Trump was elected. I just wonder about those people that were inconvenienced because they were stopped. I wonder how sympathetic they became to those causes. I don't think very sympathetic.
I can tell you this. I mean, there was even ambulances that couldn't get to hospitals. So people's lives were affected. So they might have even been really hurt by people blocking traffic, and terrified, stuck in their cars because they couldn't get through.
Right. Well, we had a situation in New Jersey where Chris Christie closed the George Washington Bridge as revenge to the mayor of Fort Lee, New Jersey, who wouldn't endorse him for governor. And I know that inconvenienced a lot of people. That made people very mad, and that caused Chris Christie's approval rating to sink like a rock, which probably cost him an appointment to the Trump administration. So and I think about these people, these women who took off, and I feel sorry for the people that were possibly affected by that. But I didn't see Ann's stories. George, how about you? I know you've been traveling the last couple of days. Did you see any effect by this day without a woman?
I didn't. Again, I distinguish between I have a lot of important women in my life, and without them, my days would not be as filled with joy and happiness and satisfaction as they are because of folks that to me are very important. But that's not what yesterday was about. Yesterday was this goofy political thing that, was run by a bunch of leftists trying to argue that. I don't know what they're trying to argue, but it was kind of
I think they make women look really bad.
What's that, Ann?
They make women look really bad, truthfully, because it's not about women care about what happens to other people, and this is definitely not about women caring.
Right. I think it's about women being very, very selfish, if you ask me. Hey, Ann, we want to thank you so much for talking with us today on the Conservative Commandos. You take care. God bless.
I appreciate you having me on. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Take care. God bless. Hey, George, let's take our break a little bit early. Once again, if you were affected by yesterday's events, A Day Without Women, please call our show at 856-227-1360. We want to hear from you. If you were inconvenienced, maybe you had appointments that were canceled, maybe you couldn't get your clothes to the dry cleaner, whatever it was. You went to your favorite store, you couldn't get coffee because the lady who usually waits on you wasn't there. Maybe your favorite diner was closed. Please give us a call at 856-227-1360. George and I'll be right back.
Crazy. I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but
This is Rick Trader, host of the Conservative Commandos radio show.
And I'm John Forsyth, owner of WNJC Radio. Fellow patriots, the Conservative Commandos radio show is for conservatives, about conservatives, and by conservatives.
We are patriots who want to take our country back from the likes of Barack Obama, Harry Reid, George Soros, and Nancy Pelosi.
But we can't keep up this fight without your critical support today. Can you help? Please go to www.helpccrs.com right now and make a donation by credit card or PayPal. That's www.helpccrs.com.
Our goal is to expose the liberal agenda and distortions.
We are fighting to spread the truth about political issues, political leaders, and conservative issues and values.
Our hosts are not paid. In fact, we buy our own airtime, studio time, and pay our own expenses.
We created the show because we are trying to make a difference. So can you help the CCRS expose the truth in 2014 and beyond? Go to www.helpccrs.com.
Help keep the Conservative Commandos radio show on the air by going to www.helpccrs.com and make a donation today to return our country to the conservative roots created by our founding fathers.
If your health care has become a burden and you're worried about being stuck for another year, you have options. Liberty Health Share could be the solution to your problem. Open enrollment is here and could be your chance to free yourself from insurance. Take this opportunity and join Liberty Health Share. You can finally be in control and have freedom when it comes to your health care. Liberty Health Share offers an entirely open network, which means you choose your doctors and you choose your hospitals. Liberty Health Share offers freedom from insurance, meaning no tax-related penalties. To find out how you can easily make the change, call Liberty Health Share today at 855-585-4237. That's 855-585-4237. Or visit their website at libertyhealthshare.org. That's libertyhealthshare.org.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
The Conservative Commandos Radio Show is the commander of the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We've established a front line of conservative leaders and ironclad patriots to revive the promise of America.
There must be some kind of way out of here.
We patriots have succeeded in securing the next 4 years of American prosperity, sovereignty, and liberty under President Donald Trump. But the fight is never over, and we must be forever vigilant.
Businessman there, drink my wine.
Do you have a passion for American values? Do you believe in preserving the American dream? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, Monday through Saturday from 12 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 AM, or around the world on the internet at ccrshow.com and ccrsnetwork.com. Check out our websites for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos Radio Show, where the newsmakers go to be heard.
Businessman there, drink my wine.
You can call the Conservative Commandos Radio Show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
And you are listening to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with George Landreth and yours truly, Rick Trader. And once again, if your day yesterday was at all affected by the protest, the Day Without a Woman protest, please call us. We want to hear from you. We want to hear how your life was affected by a Day Without a Woman. Please call us at 856-227-1360. John, is that line open? Are you sure it's working, John?
The line is open.
Is it work?
It's just not ringing.
Well, John, here we are. We're broadcasting. Please, this was supposed to be so big, John. Are you sure, John? I want you to test that.
I'm going to test it out. Give it a call to see if it's working.
Give it a call, John. Make sure it's working. All right. Again, number's 856-227-1360. If your day was affected by a Day Without Women. And George, since the last time you and I talked, our president, Donald Trump, released another version of his travel ban. Your thoughts?
Well, it's not as good as the first one in my view, but that's not his fault. I think that, the do-over basically was a response to the Ninth Circuit's arguments. So it tried to dissect its arguments, take everything that they took into, that they complained about, and find little fixes for them. Now, the Ninth Circuit might argue that the fixes aren't good enough. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, there's no end to the craziness of the Ninth Circus. But, let's put it this way. The Ringling Brother and Barnum Bailey Circus is now shutting down this year. This is their last year in operation. But for those of you who enjoy a good circus, no problem. We have the Ninth Circuit. So, but the bottom line is, it accomplishes a lot of things he wanted to do, but he had to take a few things out, and I think that's unfortunate because I think he was right on point. I mean, it wasn't a permanent ban. People called it a Muslim ban. That's just not true. That's false advertising. 85% of the world's Muslim population was allowed to come to America based on what that one said, because it only limited people from a certain number of countries, 7 total. The new one limits them from 6. It took 1 off. But I think it's a good thing. It built a 10-day delay in, which is more a question about rollout, not legality. If you recall, last time there was a few hiccups because it just kind of went into effect over a weekend, and it created some heartburn for some people in travel and so forth, and so it was supposedly supposed to be poorly executed and so forth. So that's fine, but that's not a legal standard. If the government wants to do things in a way that makes it difficult on the government to, employees to put everything in place, that's their business. There's no requirement. I've seen software companies roll things out in a way that kind of was a little backwards and didn't work that well, or created the first day it was a little awkward and so forth. That's not illegal. That's just, you learn from your mistakes, I guess, is the kind of thing. But the bottom line is, this is one of the problems you have when you have a constitution which entrusts the president with being the commander-in-chief and conducting foreign policy. You have a statute that he acts under that specifically says he has the sole discretion to do this. And then you have a court that says, well, I know that's what the Constitution says. I know that's what the statute says, except I'm giving them much more credit than they deserve because they didn't actually address either argument. They never even mentioned the statute. But nonetheless, the court says, we'd like to rethink this. We want to see if we agree with him. That's actually not the role of the court. Right. I mean, like when they look at taxes, if you and I sue on a taxes, do I get to have the court say, what should the marginal tax rate be, and what should be deductible? Of course not. The court is only allowed to determine if the law, not if it's a good idea, not if they agree with it, but if Congress acts within the authority given them by the Constitution. That's it. And the answer to the question for that in the case of Donald Trump's travel ban in the first case, or it was a temporary travel ban, was yes. Nonetheless, the court bent over backwards to find things they didn't like about it. So my complaints with the second ban are not with Donald Trump's efforts. Quite frankly, it's with the court's efforts, and the fact that the court evidently decided that it wants to be the maker of policy. Courts are not makers of policies. They adjudicate disputes, and the dispute in this case was, did the president have the lawful authority to do what he did? Not, was this a good idea? Was what he did permissible under the law and under the Constitution? That's it. Because the problem with this, is it a good idea? It depends on who you ask. That's why we hold elections, because we let the public decide if it's a good idea or not.
Right. George, one question I've had about this travel ban. Call it whatever you ever want, travel ban. Why don't they just stop issuing visas to these terroristic countries? Or visas in these terroristic countries? Like, I would venture a guess that we do not issue visas to North Vietnam.
One would hope.
Yeah, one would hope. So why don't they just stop issuing visas to people coming from these terrorist nations, like Iran, like the other countries that were in this ban? Syria.
Point.
Do we have any relationships with Syria now? I mean, Syria is in turmoil. It's a mess. I doubt we have any communications even with their government. How do you know who's coming out of Syria? You don't, because we have no communications with their government. So just don't issue visas from anybody coming from Syria.
Right. The reality is, I do not know exactly why they went the route they went. My suspicion is they used that statute because it's a statute that gives the president the ability to create discretion and deny anyone he wants a visa, whereas other statutes are more broad and they basically authorize a process for which visas are generally given, whether they be for tourists or students or whatever. But they're not designed to get the president to say, oh, no, we're not doing that. This statute was designed specifically to let him carve out and say, oh, no, this won't happen. So I think they used it because it was the best tool. You know, it's kind of like if you got to cut carpet, you go grab a carpet cutter. If you got to cut tin, you get a tin cutter. And they grabbed the tool that was best designed, and the court basically said to them, you know, I know you thought that was a good tool, but we don't agree. And again, my point is, I don't care if they agree. You could get 100 people in a room, and on any given day, and 100 people won't agree. That's not the point. We don't have courts to second guess presidents.
Right.
We have courts for one purpose and one purpose only, and that's to adjudicate whether or not he acted under authority, legitimate authority. Not do you like the way he did it. Right. I mean, otherwise we could all sue. Every time Congress has raised our taxes, we could all sue and say that's outrageous. We get some court to say, yeah, that is outrageous. That's just not how it works. You do this at the election. You know, that you go to you when you don't like what Congress does, you vote them out of office. That's what we have elections. So but when they act outside their authority, that.
Hey, George, you're breaking up, so you know what? I think we'll take our break here and maybe reestablish a better line with you. You're listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with George Landreth and Rick Trader. And remember, if your day in any way, or if your life was in any way affected by a day without a woman yesterday, please call us. Tell us how. 856-227-1360. Don't go away. George and I will be right back.
They say I'm crazy. I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but
The Conservative Commandos radio show is the commander of the Conservative Commandos radio network. We've established a front line of conservative leaders and ironclad patriots to revive the promise of America.
there must be some kind of way out of here.
We patriots have succeeded in securing the next 4 years of American prosperity, sovereignty, and liberty under President Donald Trump. But the fight is never over, and we must be forever vigilant.
Businessman there, drink my wine.
Do you have a passion for American values? Do you believe in preserving the American dream? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, Monday through Saturday from 12 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 AM, or around the world on the internet at ccrshow.com and ccrsnetwork.com. Check out our websites for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Hi, I'm Kevin Wade. Conservative Commandos is happy to welcome Liberty HealthShare as a sponsor. Liberty HealthShare is a community of health-conscious Americans who practice long-standing Christian principles in sharing health care costs. Liberty HealthShare exists for everyone who purchases health care for themselves or their family, or who wants to control their own health care. I run a small business, and we were caught in the confusion of Washington's ever-changing health insurance requirements. We found a common-sense solution in Liberty HealthShare. Liberty HealthShare is not insurance. It simply unites like-minded Americans to share medical costs together. Join a community of health-conscious Americans who practice long-standing Christian principles in sharing health care costs. That's Liberty HealthShare. To find out how you can easily make the change, call Liberty HealthShare today at 855-585-4237. That's 855-585-4237, or visit their website at libertyhealthshare.org.
This is Pastor Christina Lamanier, chaplain for the Indiana Republican Assembly.
And I'm her husband, J.D. Manier. We won the election, but we must now install President Trump's nominees. We urge you to call the Capitol Switchboard at 202-225-3121 and ask your senators to do their job. They need to confirm Judge Neil Gorsuch and remaining cabinet members.
We the people never want to see another Berkeley. The First Amendment doesn't give you the right to commit acts of violence. It pains us to watch anarchy unfold on college campuses, bus stops, and coffee shops. Thomas Jefferson said, all tyranny needs to gain a foothold is for people of good conscience to remain silent. Let us join in unity to pray for America. Once again, the number to call is 202-225-3121.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome back. Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with George Lander and yours truly, Rick Trader. And listen, I'm making this appeal again. I'm begging you. If any of you had your lives changed or altered or affected in any way, please, please, please call us at 856-227-1360. So if your life was changed yesterday because it was a day without women, you know, even if you're a nurse or doctor or work in a hospital and there were no babies born because yesterday was a day without women, please call us. John, are you sure those phones are working, John?
They are working.
They are working. No one's calling, John.
No phone calls.
I can't understand it. George, we got a couple great guests lined up for today.
We do. We start off with a good friend of the show. We've got Andrew Peak. He'll be on at the top of the hour shortly, in fact. He's got a new article out. I think it's kind of insightful and interesting. He does an analysis. You hear he points out that the Democrats should actually appreciate Donald Trump's visa plan ban and not be so dour about it. But so I think it'll be an interesting conversation.
All right.
He has a great, as I think you obviously know, he's got a great, background in terms of what he's done. He's a professor, but he also has done a lot of foreign policy work, and he used to be an Army intelligence officer working at NATO, and he was also a commander in Afghanistan. So he has some pretty practical some academic background, but also some very on-the-ground practical background. So I think he'll be a very interesting conversation.
Indeed. And this is somebody who should know about this new travel ban because he was an advisor to the Trump presidential transition team.
Yeah, right. He was on the transition team. So, anyhow, I think it'll be a very interesting conversation. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, we have at 4:30, we'll have James Phillips. He's a senior research fellow for the Middle Eastern Affairs group over at Heritage Foundation, and he's done a lot of work, obviously, as one might guess, on Middle Eastern affairs. And we'll have a good conversation with him about what's going on in just in terms of the whole, if you will, what President Trump ought to be doing to improve things in the Middle East, and specifically in Syria. He's basically just providing advice as to, if you look at what happened during the Obama years, Syria went from being perhaps a country of concern to a country that's essentially on fire. And it's, a completely failed state at this point.
Right. Well, Syria wasn't alone on that. We had Libya, we had Egypt, places that went from stable to on fire. And thank you, Barack Obama.
That's leading from behind. And so I think that basically the bottom line is that James is going to talk with us about how does one go about rebuilding that, fixing things, trying to undo the damage that was done. I think he has some practical steps and advice and things that the Trump administration can do. The point, I would argue that Ronald Reagan was in a similar situation when he took over as president. Jimmy Carter had successfully, torched most of the things that a wise president should have been doing, and it didn't happen overnight, but Ronald Reagan was able to turn things around with strength and with consistency, improve things. And I think that's what you'll see Donald Trump do, and I suspect that's what James is angling for.
Maybe we could also get either one or both of our guests to talk about all these leaks that are coming out of the White House. George, one of the things that Barack Obama did while he was in office, he appointed people to lifetime positions in like the CIA, the Justice Department, or whatever, where traditionally they were political appointments. And now now it's going to be difficult to get rid of these people because they weren't just political appointments. They were brought in as lifetime appointees. And these are the ones that I believe are leaking these things coming out of the Trump White House.
Right. And also, we've discussed this in the past, but one thing that's important to remember is it used to be that there were certain things that were so secret that basically you could count the number of people on your two hands that had access to that information. And right before Barack Obama left, he expanded that to make it several hundred and in some cases even thousands of people. And the point of that was to make sure that people could leak and that they wouldn't be discovered. Because if you're one of 5 or 6 or 7 people who know something and it gets out, it's generally not that hard to figure out who it was that leaked it and then, punish them. But when 1,000 or 2,000 people know about something and it leaks out, it's almost impossible to figure out who did it. That's why they did that. And I would argue that shows what a really horrific, awful leader and human being and even American Mr. Obama is.
Well, I for one, don't think he is an American.
Landmine.
At least he's not an American at heart, George, because Americans want America's best interest first. And in my opinion, he did everything to put anyone else before America.
Right.
I really do.
He's shameful. He is, he's not a loyal, red-blooded American. There's a reason why he had to be shamed into putting his hand over his heart during the national anthem early on when he was running. It's because he doesn't feel the same way about America that we do. Anybody who doesn't understand that at this point hasn't been paying attention. But what he did was treasonous to essentially encourage people in the government to to commit felonies, to violate our national security so that you can win political points, makes you a horrific American and a bad human being. And that is our former president.
And what do you say, George, about all the people who even today continue to support him? What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I think some of them are, in politics, things are almost always made up of coalitions. So there are some people who share his views, they share his goals, they share his ambitions, and they share his methodology. And so they are just like him, and they deserve the exact same description I just gave of him. And that's a part of his coalition. There's a part of his coalition they're just enamored with the, kind of the, wow, he's an iconic figure, and, hope and change. I feel so good about that. And these are just kind of what I would call useful dupes. And they might not be stupid people. They might be intelligent in their respective expertise and spheres, but they've allowed themselves to become a useful dupe for Barack Obama, and they support him. They're not anti-American. They don't appreciate what they're doing. They don't understand what they're doing. I'm sure we all know some people like that, and that's unfortunate. But that's the reality is that every coalition is made up of different people. They're not just some monolithic group, and there are some basically unpatriotic Americans in that group. And there's some basically useful dupes in that group. And by useful, meaning useful to Barack Obama. He uses them. And they think he's charismatic or they think he's this or that. And, he makes their heart go all flutter when he talks about hope and change. And so they get on board, not thinking and not really looking into the details. And next Next thing you know, they've helped a president do things that they don't personally agree with, but they weren't paying close enough attention.
In an article here on the Heat Street, very interesting, point out a couple of great things. In 2013, it was revealed that Obama's Justice Department snatched the phone records of over 20 reporters and editors of the Associated Press. Obama also used the Espionage Act, more than all previous presidents combined to go after leakers who fed information to the press. It's ironic because now we've got his people, the people that he entrenched in these different government bureaus, who are doing all the leaking now. George, Donald Trump needs to find out who these people are, and these people need to be prosecuted as traitors. They really do.
I agree. I mean, just so people understand, we're not throwing these words around lightly. This makes you when you have a security clearance and you have access to top secret information, and you're throwing it around there because you want to score political points. One, that's a felony. Okay, you can go to prison for that. We're not talking about getting a fine. We're not talking about not getting your bonus for this year. We're talking about a big deal. And you're right. They're doing it for they're endangering Americans' national security, so that they can score some cheap political points. There was a time and a place where we would hang people for that kind of garbage.
Indeed, or less. But what these people are doing, I believe, is a treasonous act. Hey, George, let's go to a break. And before, I have to apologize to our editor. John, are you sure those phones were working, John?
I thought they were working.
And we didn't get a single call other than, Ann did not have her day affected or changed. But we didn't get a single call, once again, John, from anyone whose day turned into a disaster because it was a day without a woman.
No phone calls, just Ann.
All I can say is I'm shocked. I was expecting the lines to be just crazy.
Burning up. George, not only that, I also posted this in about 10 different groups on Facebook. And usually when I post something on Facebook, I get a lot of comments. Did not get a single comment. But with that, you are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with George Landreth and Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network here at WNJC 1360 in Philadelphia and around the world on the internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, AM, FM 24/7. Today's show, like all our shows, is being brought to you by the First Amendment, protected by the Second. On the other side, we'll be speaking with Andrew Peak about his article, Here's Why Democrats Should Appreciate Trump's New Visa Ban. We'll be right back.
This is Rick Trader, host of the Conservative Commandos radio show.
And I'm John Forsyth, owner of WNJC Radio. Fellow patriots, the Conservative Commandos radio show is for conservatives, about conservatives, and by conservatives.
We are patriots who want to take our country back from the likes of Barack Obama, Harry Reid, George Soros, and Nancy Pelosi.
But we can't keep up this fight without your critical support today. Can you help? Please go to www.helpccrs.com right now and make a donation by credit card or PayPal. That's www.helpccrs.com.
Our goal is to expose the liberal agenda and distortions.
We are fighting to spread the truth about political issues, political leaders, and conservative issues and values.
Our hosts are not paid. In fact, we buy our own airtime, studio time, and pay our own expenses.
We created the show because we are trying to make a difference. So can you help the CCRS expose the truth in 2014 and beyond? Go to www.helpccrs.com.
Help keep the Conservative Commandos radio show on the air by going to www.helpccrs.com and make a donation today to return our country to the conservative roots created by our founding fathers.
If your health care has become a burden and you're worried about being stuck for another year, you have options. Liberty Health Share could be the solution to your problem. Open enrollment is here and could be your chance to free yourself from insurance. Take this opportunity and join Liberty Health Share. You can finally be in control and have freedom when it comes to your health care. Liberty Health Share offers an entirely open network, which means you choose your doctors and you choose your hospitals. Liberty Health Share offers freedom from insurance, meaning no tax-related penalties. To find out how you can easily make the change, call Liberty Health Share today at 855-585-4237. That's 855-585-4237. Or visit their website at libertyhealthshare.org. That's libertyhealthshare.org.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
The Conservative Commandos Radio Show is the commander of the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We've established a front line of conservative leaders and ironclad patriots to revive the promise of America.
There must be some kind of way out of here.
We patriots have succeeded in securing the next 4 years of American prosperity, sovereignty, and liberty under President Donald Trump. But the fight is never over, and we must be forever vigilant.
Businessman there, drink my wine.
Do you have a passion for American values? Do you believe in preserving the American dream? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, Monday through Saturday from 12 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 AM, or around the world on the internet at ccrshow.com and ccrsnetwork.com. Check out our websites for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos Radio Show, where the newsmakers go to be heard.
Businessman there, drink my wine.
You can call the Conservative Commandos Radio Show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
You're listening to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with George Landreth and yours truly, Rick Trader. For rebroadcast of our shows, please check out our websites, ccrshow.com or ccrsnetwork.com, or at 8 a.m., log on to Leading Edge Radio Network, or 11 p.m., highplanestalkradio.com, or you could hear our show and all the shows that are part of the Conservative Commandos Network from your phone by calling 832-999-1199. George Landreth, we have our first guest with us today, and the honor of the introduction is yours.
Excellent. We have Andrew L. Peak. He is a friend of the show. Those of you who listen all the time will recognize his name and perhaps even his voice. He's a professor at Pepperdine University. He's a foreign affairs columnist with the New York Daily News. He not only has academic experience, but he has practical experience. He's previously served as a U.S. Army intelligence officer, and he was a strategic advisor to top U.S. and NATO commanders. He was a NATO commander in Afghanistan himself. At any rate, he was also most recently an advisor to the Trump presidential transition. Andrew, welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Hey, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Always like it. You've got a good article discussing Trump's new travel ban, the updated one, to the extent that it's not as strong as perhaps we might have liked. I would argue the Ninth Circus is to blame for that. I think given their overreach and their judicial activism, the president did what he had to do. But tell us why it is that Democrats should like what Trump's doing. I thought Democrats hated everything Donald Trump did. Or should at least,
well, I
right?
think that's certainly their strategy right now. Hashtag the resistance, right? But no, Donald Trump's approach to counterterrorism is actually it's composed of two parts. One is eliminating American exposure overseas by ending nation-building projects in places like Iraq and Afghanistan. And the other one is defeating ISIS as quickly as possible. So it is, in actuality, an incrementalist approach, unlike George W. Bush, who believed in that the answer to terrorism and to radical Islam was to spread democracy throughout the Middle East by the point of, at the point of a gun or not. So Trump generally agrees with Bush that this is the most pressing part of the most pressing policy problem the United States faces today. However, he actually has followed some of Barack Obama's criticism in 2008 when Obama was a candidate of the Iraq War and of Bush overreach abroad. So there are some interesting parallels between Donald Trump's foreign policy now and Barack Obama's in 2008. I think the difference is Trump actually genuinely wants to defeat ISIS, and it's his top priority, whereas Obama was kind of content to manage the problem.
Yeah, that certainly seems to be a big difference. So when you say that Democrats have things that they should like about it, you're not suggesting that that Donald Trump and Barack Obama on foreign policy are two peas in a pod necessarily. Then
no, not at all. Not at all.
Right.
I'm simply pointing out that there is that for Trump there is no big answer to counterterrorism the way there was for Bush, like liberal democracy in the Middle East. Right. That was Bush's answer to Islamic terrorism. For Trump, there's a number of fixes we need to make, including restricting visas from these countries. So in terms of the incrementalism, that's what Democrats should love about it, because it's definitely not the Bush strategy.
Right. Now, separate apart from what you see the strategy being, let me just ask, do you think that Donald Trump's approach, do you think President Trump is taking us in a direction that's going to solve problems? An example would be, after 8 years of Barack Obama, every single hot spot in the world was hotter and substantially worse off. So I guess my question
is... That's absolutely true.
So is Donald Trump doing things so that at the end of his 8 years, presuming that he is reelected, do you see that he's on a track and he's doing the sorts of things that will make it better?
I do. I think Barack Obama was very reluctant to see the world in terms of power and in terms of hostile states that had power and would use it against the United States and also our allies around the globe. And because he was so reluctant to see the world like that, that led to a lot of these countries like Iran, like Russia, like China, pushing the envelope in terms of territory they could grab, what they could get away with, terrorism they could support. And when there was no reaction from the United States, that just escalated on itself. I think because Donald Trump sees the world in that fundamentally power-based way, that he's not afraid. He's not afraid that, to highlight America's power. He's not ashamed of it. He doesn't apologize for it. I think that we are going to rapidly move to a period of more stability, at least by the end of his tenure, because a lot of those aggressor states, like Iran, like China, that have been seeing what they can get away with, are going to stop testing the administration. So I think in the short term, you might actually, there might be a conflict or two, not a war. The president's not going to take us into a war willy-nilly, but it's going to take a little bit of time to rein in some of the mistakes of the Obama administration. But I suspect at the end of the 8 years, I don't think that's too bold a prediction, given who the Democrats are putting up in 2020. At the end of Trump's 8 years, I look to see a much more stable world. I do.
Interesting. We're coming up on a break in a couple minutes, so I just want to be mindful of that. But and we'll ask you if you can to stay over on that break, if that's okay.
Sure.
I don't know if you've seen the news report, but Rick just pointed out to me that just in that he saw on townhall.com that Hawaii is filing a lawsuit against President Trump's latest executive order on immigration, and that they likely will be joined in that by New York, Minnesota, and Washington State, and perhaps Oregon as well. They are filing, asking the court to enjoin or to postpone the enforcement of that new order, which I don't find that shocking, at least. I don't mean to suggest that I see any rationality or reasonableness in any of this. I'm just saying that these are states run by lunatics, and and they're going to go to the Ninth Circus, a lunatic court that's out of control, and most of the judges who are on that court could be removed for violating their oath of office to uphold the Constitution and the laws of the United States. So that's why I say I'm not terribly surprised. But have you heard this, and what do you see this dispute being? And we're now basically about a minute or two away from it breaks. If you need more time, just start answering the question, then kind of get us to a point where we can take a break, and we'll come back and finish it.
Sure. I think you scratch every Democratic attorney general of a state, and you will find a Democratic politician who thinks they should be the governor or the next president. So this is an easy way for left-wing states to make hay while the sun shines. As for ultimately the resolution of these disputes of this case, I cannot imagine that the high court, the actual grown-ups on the Supreme Court, will abridge the president's right to let in whoever he wants in terms of foreigners. So, in terms of defending the national security. So, I would be very, very surprised if any of this stood up for legal challenge eventually. However, I think it's just these left-wing states just playing politics.
Right. I tend to agree with you there. I think that's one of the things that's frustrating. It's hard to predict what the Ninth Circus will do, because if you can read the law and you can tell people what the law would require, but the fact of the matter is that that's not how that court operates. They don't actually, read the law. They don't cite the law. They don't refer to the law. So the truth is, if someone said, what do you think the Ninth Circuit will do? The answer is, I have no idea. No person who has rational thinking capacity could even tell you that, because they operate on a whim. And it's sad because the law isn't supposed to be based on a whim, but that's what it is. We are up against a break, though, so we're going to take a quick break, and then we'd like to have you stay over with us because we want to continue this conversation. We appreciate you having the show and your expertise. But I'll tell our listeners, we are coming to you live from the Conservative Commandos Network studios. Of course, WNJC 1360 is our flagship station in Philadelphia. And if you are outside the circumference of their radio waves, then you're obviously listening to us through some other means, probably the internet, around the world on things like American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, and AM/FM 24/7. Don't go away. Rick and I will be right back, and we'll have more with James Peake.
I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but I...
The Conservative Commandos Radio Show is the commander of the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We've established a front line of conservative leaders and ironclad patriots to revive the promise of America.
There must be some kind of way out of here.
We patriots have succeeded in securing the next 4 years of American prosperity, sovereignty, and liberty under President Donald Trump. But the fight is never over, and we must be forever vigilant.
Businessman there, drink my wine.
Do you have a passion for American values? Do you believe in preserving the American dream? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, Monday through Saturday from 12 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 AM, or around the world on the internet at ccrshow.com and ccrsnetwork.com. Check out our websites for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Hi, I'm Kevin Wade. Conservative Commandos is happy to welcome Liberty HealthShare as a sponsor. Liberty HealthShare is a community of health-conscious Americans who practice long-standing Christian principles in sharing health care costs. Liberty HealthShare exists for everyone who purchases health care for themselves or their family, or who wants to control their own health care. I run a small business, and we were caught in the confusion of Washington's ever-changing health insurance requirements. We found a common-sense solution in Liberty HealthShare. Liberty HealthShare is not insurance. It simply unites like-minded Americans to share medical costs together. Join a community of health-conscious Americans who practice long-standing Christian principles in sharing health care costs. That's Liberty HealthShare. To find out how you can easily make the change, call Liberty HealthShare today at 855-585-4237. That's 855-585-4237, or visit their website at libertyhealthshare.org.
This is Pastor Christina Lamb-Menier, chaplain for the Indiana Republican Assembly.
And I'm her husband, J.D. Menier. We won the election, but we must now install President Trump's nominees. We urge you to call the Capitol Switchboard at 202-225-3121 and ask your senators to do their job. They need to confirm Judge Neil Gorsuch and remaining cabinet members.
We the people never want to see another Berkeley. The First Amendment doesn't give you the right to commit acts of violence. It pains us to watch anarchy unfold on college campuses, bus stops, and coffee shops. Thomas Jefferson said, all tyranny needs to gain a foothold is for people of good conscience to remain silent. Let us join in unity to pray for America. Once again, the number to call is 202-225-3121.
You can call the Conservative Commandos Radio Show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with George Landreth and yours truly, Rick Trader. For rebroadcasts of our shows, check out our websites, ccrshow.com or ccrsnetwork.com. George, I'll let you pick up your interview with Andrew Peak.
Absolutely. Well, before the break, I think I said James, and I apologize, Andrew. I obviously did not want to misname you or rename you. I think your mom did just fine on that.
That's quite all right. That's quite all right.
But we were talking a bit about what's going on, and I wanted to get a couple, one or two questions in, and then I want to make sure I bring Rick in to kind of continue some of the thoughts that he may have on the same issue. But one of the things that I find very troubling about this whole kind of foreign policy question is that we had for 8 years a president whose view of America was that it really wasn't a special place, that it was, in many cases, it was the problem, not the solution.
Right.
In general, seem to want to take us down a few pegs, and I don't see that the world is benefited by that. So I guess my question to you is, you've helped on the transition team. When you listen to the voices that Donald Trump's hearing and you're providing advice, is it your sense that President Trump views America as a special place? And while nobody wants America to be fighting wars all over the globe and to be the world's policeman, does he see America as generally a force for good in the world, or does he see it as a place that should be racked with guilt because the reality is we've made all the world's problems? Because I think how Obama saw it. America.
I think he thinks America is an incredibly special place that is unique. I think he loves America very much. This is a country where someone has the opportunity to build a huge company that's worth billions of dollars, who can become president of the United States, even though the news media and people in classes different from him routinely make fun of him. It is an incredible country. I think he believes in the American dream, so to speak, the opportunity and economic egalitarianism, an opportunity that allows any American to succeed in life. I think that is especially true in terms of his foreign policy. I mean, the basic element of Donald Trump's foreign policy is that he doesn't want Americans to be in danger. I mean, this is essentially what it comes down to. This is how it's different than Bush and Obama and everyone else. He loves America. This is his country that's given him so much, and he wants to preserve American strength for the next 100 years so that we're not frittering away American lives and billions of dollars in conflicts that we're not going to be able to fix. So I think there is a strong element of American exceptionalism, and it drives both his foreign policy approach and his overall worldview.
And now my follow-up question, then I will turn the time to Rick, is just, do you think that view, is it important that a president, and does it make a difference in foreign policy, and does it make the world a better place if the president appreciates the...
Yeah, George, I'm sorry, but you're dropping off again. So, Andrew, I'll pick it up.
Much more loud.
George, you're dropping off, so let me pick it up. Here on the Conservative Commandos radio show, we are speaking with Andrew Peak about his article, Here's Why Democrats Should Appreciate Trump's New Visa Ban. Andrew, I really do think that here you have the tail wagging the dog. And what I think Donald Trump should do is just pass an executive order, just like Barack Obama did, halting the issuance of visas of these 6 or 7 countries, or maybe all 58 countries of the Muslim world there. And then let the states sue him. Let this go all the way to the Supreme Court to get a decision. But in the meantime, these people will not be coming here. And I think, Andrew, there is precedent for something like this to happen. Now, the liberal media is going to howl like crazy, but in 1931, President Andrew Jackson convinced Congress to pass the Indian Removal Act, which was another immigration issue, and that the Supreme Court, this went eventually to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court, led by John Marshall, ruled against Jackson, at which point Jackson said, John Marshall has made his decision, now let him enforce it. And he continued with the Indian Removal Act. Now, say what you want to say about the fairness of the Indian Removal Act. That's a discussion in and of itself. Maybe we could also get George to come back in. But, Andrew, do you think the president is letting the tail wag the dog, that he should take an action like this, let the court sue him, let this go to the Supreme Court, but in the meantime, stop issuing visas to these terrorist nations?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty reasonable executive order. 4 of these countries are nations that are deeply racked by instability and violence and terrorism, and who definitely cannot vet properly their own citizens who are looking to come to the United States. Two of the others are terrorist-supporting nations, Iran and Sudan. I don't see anything particularly dramatic with temporarily suspending visas for these countries, since the intelligence and national security community and advisors to Trump think this is an important step forward for counterterrorism. Now, people on the left are going to say, well, but that's not going to stop every terrorist.
People on the left, Andrew, are going to howl like crazy, but they're going to howl like crazy no matter what Donald Trump does.
Exactly.
If Donald Trump breathes out of his mouth instead of his nose, they're going to go crazy. You know?
Precisely.
So I'm saying let them go crazy. But in the meantime, stop issuing visas. Just stop issuing visas. Then let the courts sue him. Continue to deny visas, the issuance of visas. Let this go all the way to the Supreme Court. That's what I'm saying.
No, I feel confident at the Supreme Court he'll prevail, simply because nobody really disputes in a fundamental way the president's right to make immigration policy. That's a long-standing legal principle.
Yes.
So, and yes, the Democrats are going to howl about that, but they're also going to howl if there's a terrorist attack.
Yes.
So
who are they going to blame then? If there's a terrorist attack now, who are they going to blame, Andrew?
Right. They'll probably blame Kellyanne Conway.
Well, Kellyanne Conway, Donald Trump, everybody that's in the White House. They'll blame Ivanka Trump, you know? Hey, Andrew, great to have you with us. Always great. Andrew Peak. Please tell our audience where they could follow your work.
Absolutely. I'm at Andrew L. Peak on Twitter. That's at Andrew L. Peak, P-E-E-K. Thanks so much. It's great to be here.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Always great to have you with us. Give our best to your mom for us, please.
I sure will.
One of my favorite guests. And you are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with George Landreth and Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network at WNJC 1360 in Philadelphia and around the world on the internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, AM/FM 24/7. Don't go away. On the other side, we're going to be talking with James Phillips. He's a senior research fellow for Middle Eastern Affairs at the Heritage Foundation, and we're going to be talking about a report he has written, How President Trump Can Improve U.S.-Syria Policy. Be right back.
This is Rick Trader, host of the Conservative Commandos radio show.
And I'm John Forsyth, owner of WNJC Radio. Fellow Patriots, the Conservative Commandos radio show is for conservatives, about conservatives, and by conservatives.
We are patriots who want to take our country back from the likes of Barack Obama, Harry Reid, George Soros, and Nancy Pelosi.
But we can't keep up this fight without your critical support today. Can you help? Please go to www.helpccrs.com right now and make a donation by credit card or PayPal. That's www.helpccrs.com.
Our goal is to expose the liberal agenda and distortions.
We are fighting to spread the truth about political issues, political leaders, and conservative issues and values.
Our hosts are not paid. In fact, we buy our own airtime, studio time, and pay our own expenses.
We created the show because we're trying to make a difference. So can you help the CCRS expose the truth in 2014 and beyond? Go to www.helpccrs.com.
Help keep the Conservative Commandos radio show on the air by going to www.helpccrs.com and make a donation today to return our country to the conservative roots created by our founding fathers.
If your health care has become a burden and you're worried about being stuck for another year, you have options. Liberty Health Share could be the solution to your problem. Open enrollment is here and could be your chance to free yourself from insurance. Take this opportunity and join Liberty Health Share. You can finally be in control and have freedom when it comes to your health care. Liberty HealthShare offers an entirely open network, which means you choose your doctors and you choose your hospitals. Liberty HealthShare offers freedom from insurance, meaning no tax-related penalties. To find out how you can easily make the change, call Liberty HealthShare today at 855-585-4237. That's 855-585-4237. Or visit their website at libertyhealthshare.org. That's libertyhealthshare.org.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
The Conservative Commandos Radio Show is the commander of the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We've established a front line of conservative leaders and ironclad patriots to revive the promise of America.
There must be some kind of way out of here.
We patriots have succeeded in securing the next 4 years of American prosperity, sovereignty, and liberty under President Donald Trump. But the fight is never over, and we must be forever vigilant.
Businessman there, drink my wine.
Do you have a passion for American values? Do you believe in preserving the American dream? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, Monday through Saturday from 12 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 AM, or around the world on the internet at ccrshow.com and ccrsnetwork.com. Check out our websites for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos Radio Show, where the newsmakers go to be heard.
Businessman there, drink my wine.
You can call the Conservative Commandos Radio Show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
Welcome back. This is George Landreth and Rick Trader, the original Conservative Commando. And we have on the line with us our next guest, but I want to, before I introduce him, remind our listeners that if you want to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, you can always do that by checking out our websites, ccrsnetwork.com and ccrshow.com. You can also go to Leading Edge Radio Network at 8 a.m. and 11 p.m. You can go to highplainstalkradio.com. And, of course, you can always listen to Conservative Commandos from any phone. All you got to do is call 832-999-1199. All righty. We have our next guest. This is James Phillips. He is a senior research fellow for Middle Eastern Affairs at the Heritage Foundation, and he has done extensive research and writing on the regional issues and the international terrorism since 1978. He has been interviewed on a broad range of subjects dealing with Middle Eastern issues, foreign policy, and those areas, on everything from, well, basically if ABC, NBC, Fox News, CNN, C-SPAN, MSNBC, you get the picture. He's been everywhere. And, of course, he also publishes in papers, and so whether it's USA Today or the New York Times or the Washington Times or the New York Post, on and on and on, he's been there. He's an expert, and we are glad, James, to have you back on the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Well, thank you.
So let's look at the Middle East real quickly, and Syria in particular. And I want to ask you first, was Syria going to be this train wreck that it is right now, irrespective of what President Obama did, or did President Obama's foreign policy and did his action contribute to and help create the situation we see there now?
Well, the worsening civil war in Syria has been called the problem from hell, but I think the Obama administration's early vacillations made the situation even worse. I think the administration correctly ruled out direct U.S. military intervention, but I think we could have done a lot more to support more moderate rebels early in the campaign, and that would have prevented the meteoric rise of ISIS, which was much better financed and armed and supported by other funding sources, in part because the U.S. Wasn't involved with the rebels in the first 2 years of the war.
Interesting. So part of the problem, then, it appears, would be obviously Syria was not the Garden of Eden, but it was made much worse by inaction and a failure to act appropriately at the right times.
That's right, and I think the President Obama himself made things worse, because at the end of a press conference on I think it was a domestic issue, he took a question on Syria and warned the Assad regime not to use chemical weapons. And that caught his own staff by surprise. And then when the Assad regime did use chemical weapons, the administration dragged its feet for many months and then announced it was going to launch airstrikes, and then backed off that decision to launch airstrikes. And I think that really exposed the administration as an unreliable ally and a feckless adversary.
Are things bad that there's really nothing that can be done to fix it, or is this the sort of thing that, like when Ronald Reagan took over from the mismanagement of President Carter, through effective and consistent leadership, can over time begin to turn the tide and correct things? I'm not suggesting that in 4 years Syria becomes United States' greatest ally and becomes essentially a beacon of hope and opportunity in the Middle East. But is there an opportunity for improvement, or is this basically a lost cause?
Well, I think Syria itself is like Humpty Dumpty. It's going to be hard, I would say almost impossible, to put it back together again. And I would blame that on the brutal Assad regime, which was a state sponsor of terrorism allied with Iran. And finally, many of the groups it was supporting, including Al-Qaeda in Iraq, it was supporting against the U.S., and that eventually turned against the regime and morphed into ISIS. So I would put, the blame for it primarily at the feet of the Assad regime, which triggered all this. But that said, I think the U.S. can still defeat ISIS inside Syria, but it's got to be careful about mission creep in doing so, and not try to get involved in putting Syria back together again, because I think that's going to be too complicated and it's going to cost too much.
Interesting. So if you were sitting across the table, I'll say the Resolute desk in the Oval Office, and President Trump said, James, I'd like to get your candid advice. What should I be doing in the next 6 months, the next year, the next 2 years? What would you tell him? Now, I'll tell you, we have to take a break in about 2 minutes, so you might just start answering that question. We'll take the break, and then when we come back, you can finish it up, and we'll go on to some other topics.
Okay. I think I would advise him that the top U.S. priority in Syria is defeating ISIS, which poses a threat to the U.S. homeland and to our allies. But in defeating ISIS, we should try to enlist as many rebel groups on the ground as possible. And that's going to be difficult because some of those rebel groups are fighting each other, such as, some of the Arab groups aligned with Turkey are fighting the Kurdish militias that are aligned with the U.S., and we don't want to get sucked into a civil war, but we got to ratchet up the military pressure on ISIS while putting political pressure on the rebel movement to unify against ISIS, and if possible, try to broker some kind of a consensus between Turkey and the Syrian Kurds that would allow both of them to focus more on ISIS and less on attacking each other.
Fair enough. That certainly sounds like the sort of thing that the previous president should have done, and I'm optimistic that this president will be doing those sorts of things. But we will take a break right now. We'll come back and pick that up, and I will discuss perhaps if you think that President Trump is going to head in the right direction on these matters and do that. Just want to remind everyone that we are. This is the Conservative Commandos radio program, and of course you're listening to George Landreth and Rick Trader and our special guest, James Phillips. We're coming to you live from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios. WNJC 1360 is our flagship station in Philadelphia, and of course you can listen to us around the world on the internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, SHR Media, K98 Talk, TalkStream Live, iHeartRadio, and AM/FM 24/7. Don't go away. Rick and I and James will be right back.
I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but I...
The Conservative Commandos Radio Show is the commander of the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We've established a front line of conservative leaders and ironclad patriots to revive the promise of America.
There must be some kind of way out of here.
We patriots have succeeded in securing the next 4 years of American prosperity, sovereignty, and liberty under President Donald Trump. But the fight is never over, and we must be forever vigilant.
Businessman there, drink my wine.
Do you have a passion for American values? Do you believe in preserving the American dream? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, Monday through Saturday from 12 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 AM, or around the world on the internet at ccrshow.com and ccrsnetwork.com. Check out our websites for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Hi, I'm Kevin Wade. Conservative Commandos is happy to welcome Liberty HealthShare as a sponsor. Liberty HealthShare is a community of health-conscious Americans who practice long-standing Christian principles in sharing health care costs. Liberty HealthShare exists for everyone who purchases health care for themselves or their family, or who wants to control their own health care. I run a small business, and we were caught in the confusion of Washington's ever-changing health insurance requirements. We found a common-sense solution in Liberty HealthShare. Liberty HealthShare is not insurance. It simply unites like-minded Americans to share medical costs together. Join a community of health-conscious Americans who practice long-standing Christian principles in sharing health care costs. That's Liberty Health Share. To find out how you can easily make the change, call Liberty Health Share today at 855-585-4237. That's 855-585-4237, or visit their website at libertyhealthshare.org.
This is Pastor Christina Lamb-Menier, chaplain for the Indiana Republican Assembly.
And I'm her husband, J.D. Menier. We won the election, but we must now install President Trump's nominees. We urge you to call the Capitol Switchboard at 202-225-3121 and ask your senators to do their job. They need to confirm Judge Neil Gorsuch and remaining cabinet members.
We, the people, never want to see another Berkeley. The First Amendment doesn't give you the right to commit acts of violence. It pains us to watch anarchy unfold on college campuses, bus stops, and coffee shops. Thomas Jefferson said, "All tyranny needs to gain a foothold is for people of good conscience to remain silent." Let us join in unity to pray for America. Once again, the number to call is 202-225-3121.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome back. Rick Trader and George Landreth, the Conservative Commandos, are glad to have you with us. There's always a lot to talk about. We've got our special guest, James Phillips from Heritage here. I just want to remind you, if you want to hear a rebroadcast of our show, always check out our websites, ccrsnetwork.com and ccrshow.com. You can also go to Leading Edge Radio Network at 8 a.m. At 11 p.m., you can go on to highplainstalkradio.com. And, of course, you can always listen to us live with your phone and this number, 832-999-1199. We've been talking with James Phillips from Heritage. He's a scholar and expert on the Middle East. We've been talking about Syria. James, I wanted to ask you just quickly how you see the transition that takes place as America foreign policy changes and shifts with a new president and a new Secretary of State. How those things, how do you see that playing out? Can things change overnight? I don't mean that all of a sudden Syria becomes a wonderful, bastion of hope for the future, but meaning, can foreign policy change quickly and you begin to mend things that have been allowed to happen? Because I think, for example, feckless is a good word to use with Barack Obama. The question then is, can a new president exert leadership and kind of wash away the idea, well, America's uncommitted, it's feckless, it's going to say one thing and do another? Can that change quickly, or does even that change slowly?
Well, I think one of the advantages of the American system is that if a president digs himself into a hole on foreign policy, his successor is free to radically change that policy and inject, new momentum into U.S. policies. And I think we're seeing that in Syria. The Obama administration wrung its hands for many years, talked about what it wasn't going to do, put tremendous restrictions on the use of U.S. Troops. At first, they ruled out a combat role, U.S. Advisors and trainers only, and it restricted those trainers to keep them far away from the front lines. Then it gradually released the restrictions, although it kept very tight restrictions on bombing so that it reduced the effectiveness of U.S. air power. And then gradually it inserted special forces into Syria in kind of an ad hoc, incremental manner, which kind of defeated their impact because the enemy had a chance to adjust to them. I think the Trump administration, in contrast, is much more decisive. It's ratcheting up the military pressure on ISIS. Today there was news that a Marine unit has crossed into Syria to provide artillery support for Syrian rebel groups that are attacking ISIS. And the Trump administration also has lifted some of the politically motivated restrictions on U.S. air power and allowed advisors to move closer to the front lines. There's also talk about possibly using 1,000 U.S. military troops that would be based in Kuwait as a reserve force that would move in if needed inside Syria. So I think it's much more effective in the use of military power. What remains to be seen is, what kind of results this more aggressive policy has inside Syria.
James, I want to make sure that I let Rick jump in. I know he's got some interesting questions, and I think he wants to bring us around to talk a little about Russia as well.
Here in the Conservative Commandos radio show, we are speaking with James Phillips. He's the Senior Research Fellow for Middle Eastern Affairs at the Heritage Foundation. James, it's great to have you back on with us again.
Well, thank you. It's good to be on.
You just talked about possibly an American military involvement into Syria, and I got to be honest with you, James, I'm not comfortable with the United States involving militarily because in the past, the rules of engagement have been so restricted. Do you think that the rules of engagement with a Trump administration are going to be different?
Yeah, I think they're already a little bit different, and I would expect them to change rapidly once the administration puts in place its new strategy that it's weighing for Syria. I mean, I myself am a little nervous because I don't want to see mission creep to see, and the president makes me nervous when he talks about creating safe zones inside Syria, because that means there would have to be some kind of protection on the ground, and I wouldn't want U.S. troops to go into Syria just to protect refugees. I think, if they're attacking ISIS, that's one thing, but becoming committed to a safe zone would be an open-ended military commitment that would be very difficult to carry out, and then there's always the danger that ISIS would infiltrate the refugee camps, and you could be attacked from inside the camp. So that, I hope that the administration reconsiders that and, maybe calls the safe zones the zones that there have already been created inside Turkey and Jordan and Iraqi Kurdistan and Lebanon. The U.S. could maybe provide air cover to keep those from being attacked, but I think it would be a mistake to get involved on the ground in a humanitarian mission, because we saw what happened in Somalia when that mission greatly expanded.
James, there's another 10,000-ton gorilla in the room. Anytime you talk about Syria, anytime you talk about U.S. military involvement in Syria, and you allude to it in your column, you talk about Russia, you talk about Vladimir Putin. Barack Obama put all these lines in the sand and backed away from them. Do you think that Vladimir Putin is going to respect Donald Trump more than he respected Barack Obama? Do you think that Vladimir Putin is more likely to work with Donald Trump in Syria than he has in the past? Or is Vladimir Putin going to put the interests of Russia first and forget all others?
Well, I think Putin will respect Trump more merely because I don't think he respected Obama at all. And he continuously presented Obama with fait accomplis, cut him out of the peacemaking that set up the ceasefire in Syria. and kind of tricked him on the chemical weapons deal that turned out to be kind of a false deal because Syria is still using chemical weapons. So, I think he'll respect Trump more, but on the other hand, I don't trust Putin to do what he says he's doing. He pays lip service to attacking ISIS, but about 90% of the Russian bombing raids have been against moderate rebel groups, including some allied with the U.S. And so I think Putin could be counted on to do his best to prop up Assad and not necessarily go after ISIS. So I wouldn't put my trust in cooperation with Russia against ISIS, because I think the Russians actually see ISIS as a good thing from Assad's point of view, because ISIS discredits a lot of the other rebel groups. And the other problem is that U.S. cooperation with Russia inside Syria would not only benefit the Assad regime, but it would benefit Iran.
Yeah. Hey, James, I'm sorry to do this to you, but we have a live show coming up behind us, so I have to make way for that. But I wanted you to please tell our audience how they could read your report and follow your writings and that at the Heritage Foundation.
Okay, they could find it on our website at heritage.org. If you click on the Middle East section, it's one of the most recent papers on the Middle East.
James Phillips, Senior Research Fellow for Middle Eastern Affairs at the Heritage Foundation. I want to thank you so much for joining us on Conservative Commandos.
Well, thank you.
Hey, George, got to run real quick because we do have a live show coming up, but I want to thank our guest today, James Phillips from the Heritage Foundation, and also Andrew Peak. But for right now, we got to run, we got to go. Take care. God bless. We'll see you tomorrow on the radio.
1360 AM. WNJC, Washington Township, Philadelphia.
Hi, I'm Kevin Wade. Conservative Commandos is happy to welcome Liberty HealthShare as a sponsor. Liberty HealthShare is a community of health-conscious Americans who practice long-standing Christian principles in sharing health care costs. Liberty HealthShare exists for everyone who purchases health care for themselves or their family, or who wants to control their own health care. I run a small business, and we were caught in the confusion of Washington's ever-changing health insurance requirements. We found a common-sense solution in Liberty HealthShare. Liberty HealthShare is not insurance. It simply unites like-minded Americans to share medical costs together. Join a community of health-conscious Americans who practice long-standing Christian principles in sharing health care costs. That's Liberty HealthShare. To find out how you can easily make the change, call Liberty HealthShare today at 855-585-4237. That's 855-585-4237, or visit their website at libertyhealthshare.org.